This past Wednesday night, I shared on our live stream a little bit about where we find ourselves as a church amidst this evolving COVID-19 pandemic. It was the first step in a conversation about how we as a church move forward together in this pandemic. We launched a congregational survey to learn more about how you have been holding up and how we might better address your spiritual needs in the coming weeks and months. If you've not had a chance to participate in that subject, we'd love for you to take a few moments and share with us your experience. You'll see a link to that survey right here on the screen. Wednesday night, I shared that we feel blessed that Hillsboro Presbyterian remains on firm financial ground due to steady giving, a sizable emergency fund, and being debt-free. And despite these being uncertain times, we are fortunate to have the opportunity to continue doing impactful ministry and even expanding our reach throughout this season of distancing and beyond. Our community has grown quite a bit over the past 3 months, as many new folks have found their way to our live stream and walked away feeling encouraged, having encountered God in their experience. By and large, our congregation has done a fantastic job of transitioning into this new way of being and doing church, but that doesn't mean everyone within our community is okay. It's a perfectly normal response to be struggling with fear and anxiety and isolation throughout this pandemic. Those are normal responses to an abnormal and traumatic situation. I've experienced them all myself, and if you're like me, you begin to notice that they come in cycles, where fear and anxiety and anger or frustration just find a way to creep back in, even on those days when everything feels okay. Life goes on even though we feel frozen in our homes. We as a congregation have experienced multiple deaths within our congregation during this time. And what's so frustrating is the pain of that has been compounded because we have been unable to mourn the way we want to. Believe me, we're going to celebrate these cherished lives together when we can, but that doesn't change the fact that we want to mourn and remember them together now. You see, we need weekly rhythms and rituals to center us on God and community. And while we are finding those new rhythms in our homes, they can still feel inadequate at times. We need that. We need things like hugs and high fives and sharing the peace of Christ that goes on forever. Those are things that make us feel connected, that give us a sense of place and belonging. And even though we get a little bit of that back, doing church online, virtually, we certainly can miss the real thing. So how do we move forward together? I think it's important that we ask the question in that way. How do we move forward together? It makes me think of that Hebrew word for peace. Peace we talked about so much in the sermon, the peace that is central to God's desire for us, shalom. In Hebrew, it actually holds more meaning than just peace. It's peace with justice, and it literally means wholeness. So moving forward together requires that we as a collective community seek wholeness in every step forward we take. And let's be honest with here, we don't know what lies before us, and pursuing shalom, peace, wholeness, could quite possibly mean taking a step back from time to time. Despite all the mean things I've said about it and to it, the virus just doesn't take the hint and go away. And so we're learning to live with it. For us as a faith community, shalom means pursuing a right relationship with God, a right relationship with ourselves, a right relationship with each other, a right relationship with our environment and the community around us. So if we want to follow in the way of Jesus, the great physician, then we must honor that Hippocratic oath to do no harm. We as a church have been very aggressive in our handling of this crisis. We were among the first churches in the area to end all in-person gatherings, and we closed our day school for nearly 2 months. It is our pursuit of that shalom that has guided our aggressive stance. After nearly 6 months of researching this novel coronavirus, some consensus around how it spreads and acts is finally beginning to emerge. COVID-19 appears to be primarily an airborne transmission that thrives indoors amongst people in close proximity for extended periods of time. Researchers have estimated that 10% of cases have accounted for 80% of the spread. This means things like offices, events, and large indoor gatherings like worship have been the primary driver of this pandemic. I know we want this virus to go away, but we cannot be naive to the steady rise in the number of cases in our state as sections of our society begin to open up. In Davidson County, the coronavirus has infected 1 in every 91 residents. So moving forward together is complicated, especially if shalom, wholeness, is our goal. Any quick return to in-person worship would certainly leave behind individuals for whom it is too risky for them to attend, or worse yet, would create a sense of obligation or pressure to attend despite it being against their best interests. We are also mindful of the deep need for social and spiritual connectivity during this time. As our state and country begin this process of reopening, our leadership has prepared a phased strategy that honors our core values of radical inclusion and solidarity, ensuring that we move forward together. The first phase is simple. You're in it. It's how we're currently doing church, where all components of life of our congregation are conducted virtually. During this phase, some of our fellowship and life groups have met in person at their own discretion in consultation with leadership, while they do follow good social distancing practices. But as we enter the second phase, some changes begin to happen, and you'll see them there. Smaller groups of individuals are welcome to meet in person. Groups like existing small groups and life groups will be free to meet according to their comfort level, with the expectation that outdoor activities are preferred and the rules of social distancing are followed. We define social distancing as having readily available hand cleaning or sanitizing stations, a venue allowing for at least 6 feet of distance between families, and for individual participants to wear masks. One unique feature of this phase and beyond is for groups to have the option of meeting together on Sunday mornings and participating in the worship live stream together. This is a way that some might be able to experience the communal aspect of worship while minimizing the risk of passing the virus to large groups of people. The church facility will remain closed during phase 2, as these gatherings should all take place in backyards and homes within our community. In phase 3, the restrictions loosen slightly to allow more groups to enjoy semi-regular activities while still maintaining good social distancing practices. In phase 3, the church office and larger facility will officially reopen, but in a limited and case-by-case basis. Any requests to use the facility will be carefully considered and spaced out to ensure minimal exposure. At this time, the session has made no plans to move beyond phase 1. The status of our community and safety concerns are being monitored on a weekly basis. This will inform our decision of when to move forward into each new phase. We are actively consulting with state and local officials, as well as an advisory team that represents healthcare professionals, legal professionals, and other areas of relevant expertise. Whenever a decision or change is made, we will immediately inform the community through all relevant communication channels. The final phase is our next normal, where we go about the mission of the church with zero restrictions. The challenging thing for us right now is that we don't know what the next normal is going to look like. Research has shown that in the wake of disaster, communities initially respond with acts of heroism, and then quickly transition into this honeymoon phase where communities pull together with a sense of optimism that they can get through this together. It's why we, by and large, jumped on board with that cry. You remember the cry to flatten the curve, and cheered and celebrated our first responders. But it feels like now we're out of the COVID-19 honeymoon phase, where we all rolled our sleeves up. We're now drifting into a new phase, one without clear answers, one that you might call the disillusionment phase. After enough time passes, we look around and realize that we're not back to normal, and we're still nowhere close to normal. And that disillusionment sets in. You can feel it in our society right now. The community cohesion around flatten the curve, it's gone. And we're off in our own corners with our own opinions on what's next. And that's when that anxiety and fear and anger that we initially felt at the start starts to reemerge, because we're re-experiencing the crisis again, this time without the honeymoon response. We've weathered the storm, we've had our strange honeymoon, and here we sit conflicted, not knowing what's next. And in this moment, the task before us is the task of reconstructing the church. We are nowhere close to normal. And even if we were, would we really want to return to the same normal? Our task is to reconstruct our community from the lessons we've learned and the things made clear by this tragedy. This phase is about discovering what is and what isn't possible, learning to accept that new reality and taking responsibility for this collective process of recovery. This process of recovery and reconstructing the church starts small. So I'm going to ask you to take up with me some practices during this season as we move from disillusionment to reconstruction. These are things we're going to be reiterating every week and emailing you about and posting online to try to encourage you in. First encouragement's simple. Build up an authentic sense of hope by setting goals for yourself. Simple goals, strange goals, family goals, personal goals, whatever you feel, but make sure that they're goals that you feel are achievable. It's easy right now to be lulled into simply waiting and lose that sense of hope that comes when we feel we have agency to work for and accomplish things. So I'm asking you to believe in and plan for positive changes, not only for yourself, but for us as a community. Even when problems come and our future looks different than expected, this cultivates that authentic hope by setting future goals. It gives us strength to move forward. So start with these small goals for yourself. Second, I know we do this every week, but I'm going to ask you to lean even more into gratitude. It's funny, gratitude is actually a choice. Sure, there's limits of how much we can change our circumstances, but we can choose the way we think about them. So choosing gratitude actually changes the way we experience the world and gives us a sense that there is more to be gained despite what we've lost. So take up the practice of gratitude journaling. Now, I'm telling myself this because I used to do it 2 times a day, and I've not done it in months, and I can tell. Set yourself a goal of writing a letter of gratitude a week for someone you appreciate. Take up the practice of having gratitude check-ins with someone a few times a week. Talk and compare gratitude lists. There's many opportunities. Third, focus on being kind to yourself and others. This is another one that hits me close to home because I have been incredibly critical of myself recently. And it gives me this suffocating feeling of being stuck, only being able to look inward. Instead, focus on being kind in a bold new way to both yourself and those that you encounter. So we're going to be doing some kindness challenges together in the coming weeks, some creative ideas of how you can provoke yourself into acts of kindness. Finally, give yourself permission to believe that with God, we can overcome these obstacles together and find our next normal. I'm asking you to believe that God still cares for us in the midst of the suffering, that God has a purpose for us, even during this time, that God is with us, giving us courage to confront difficult questions and decisions. The author and poet Wendell Berry told us that the great challenge of our time would be whether we see life as a machine or as a miracle. And this is our challenge and our prophetic witness as a church. The value of human life is not determined on a balance sheet or in maximal displays of personal liberty. No, it's valued in wholeness. And so moving forward together means that we hold wholeness at the center of our community, seeking to leave no one behind while trusting that God who created is still creating new ways to be near us. So my sisters and brothers, may God bless you with discomfort at easy answers, half-truths, and superficial relationships so that you may live deep within your heart. May God bless you with anger at injustice, oppression, and the exploitation of people so that you may work for justice, freedom, and peace. May God bless you with tears. Tears to shed for those who suffer pain, rejection, hunger, isolation, and war, so that you may reach out your hand to comfort them and turn their pain into joy. May God bless you with enough foolishness to believe that you can make a difference in the world, so that you can do what others claim cannot be done, to bring justice and kindness to all God's children. Sisters and brothers, go in peace.